So yeah, the music's a little bit on the sinister side. Um, Probably a bit more than I was initially anticipating. Um, fun. I'm just making sure all the bits have gone out. There we go. There we go. Who's in the chat then? Who's in the chat? What we'll do is we will slowly mix that down. Spot that there. Hit the buttons. Hey, there we go. There I am. Let's make sure people are coming in. Make sure to say hello in the chat. as the folk are making their way in. Of course, just quickly double checking. It says, there we go. Feeds come through, which is really helpful. It has just occurred to me, of course, I've asked the warm-up question. And feel free, to, of course, to keep answering that. What is your drink memory of Christmas lunch? So bear with 2 seconds. Because what I will do is we will quickly grab what I've got for Christmas lunch this year, which is barrel-aged, upside-down Christmas cake, which is basically like a Christmas stout. Which has been made, it's Amundsen Brew, which I believe is based in Norway. Yes, it is. It's based in Norway. So proper Christmassy looking beer on that front. That's what's going into my That's what's my Christmas tipple. If nothing else, Pepsi, probably. Coward. That's all I'm saying to you. Either way, looking at the time, it's time to get rocking and rolling once again. Guys, gals, and the gender fluid and all beyond the binary. We're back where we belong. It is Wednesday night, it is 8 PM, and welcome once again to the BOTW What's Current stream. My name is Anthony Russell, back to bring you through the weird, wonderful, and wacky world that is the National Ice Hockey League structure here in Great Britain. We focus on the National Division. That is our bread and butter, our home port. But of course, we take a moment across the next hour and a bit to go through absolutely everything that has happened across the National Division, as well as Division 1 and Division 2 in the north and in the south. Hope everybody is doing well. As you've noticed, very busy last few days, last week in fact, over in BOTW land. I have been very, very busy doing a lot. It has been absolutely crazy, as you can kind of tell from last week. What we have got is a sense of, so let's just run back. So let's run back to about a week ago. And just quickly quickly have a look at some of the stuff that we've done. Commentated last week, interviewed the rebrand of the IHA was on Thursday, interviewed the director who was responsible for that on the Friday, interview with Steve Nell came out on the Saturday, including going to Swindon. Sunday, tried to recover. Yesterday, was writing about a few bits and pieces for programmes that are happening over the Christmas period. Yesterday, wrote up the Swindon game, which of course has been published today. And now we are back where we should be on a Wednesday evening. So there's been plenty going on. Before we dive too much into the news, a little bit of housekeeping, of course, here at the What's Current stream. bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, your number one source for all things related to the National Division. And of course, you get to follow my ridiculous journey around British ice hockey this year. Having started that website to look at the Basingstoke Bison, the Bison are sitting still in the midst, just out of view, which has given me the opportunity to travel around mostly the south of England. A little bit of a visit to Scotland, but you've had the opportunity, and I've written up every game that I've gone to, which means, of course, you've had 2 pieces come out in the last couple of days. You've got my write-up from my view from the commentary box of last Wednesday's game in the Elite League Challenge Cup quarter-final between Guildford and Fife, and then you have my view of the grand homecoming that was the Swindon Wildcats' demolition of the Sheffield Steel Dogs from this past Saturday. I was there in person for the reopening of the Link Centre. Link Centre Ice Rink, and so you get my in-depth thoughts on that game. Spoiler alert, the Dogs are weird to watch, but plenty of stuff there, as well as like a back catalogue of 12 years worth of stuff, as well as our Hockey Stories series. And of course we had the most recent part of Hockey Stories, as it was Journey of the Masters, which was me chatting to Hannah Driver and Noni Dodwell of Ice Crushers GBR, who are going to the World Winter Masters Games in northern Italy in the beginning of January. But we've got Hockey Stories kind of covers this ridiculous mix of everything from the 19th century to the present day, into war, behind the Iron Curtain and beyond, players, officials, all sorts of stuff. Long form, in-depth pieces for you to read, and some video interviews as well with the movers and shakers of British ice hockey, all there, as well as the old back catalogue of the podcast. Dice Hockey, are free to download game. All of that is there over at bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. And of course, the other bit of housekeeping is we are live on YouTube. We were live last Friday, but that was for a very special reason. Our home is Wednesday nights here on YouTube for the What's Current stream to cover all the NIHL news. And of course, that means that you can join in with the chat. And by all means, please do. Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, everything you want to throw in about all the stuff that we cover across the evening. It's not a monologue, it's a dialogue with you guys. And we've got a great community of folk who like to join in. But of course, if you are sticking something in the chat, please do make sure you follow the golden rule here at the What's Current stream. DBAD, don't be a dick, be respectful of other people's thoughts and feelings, and we're all going to have a great time. Well, everybody. Tons of news, tons of bits and pieces to chat about, focus on British hockey in general. And like I say, as I said at the top of the show, pretty crazy week. All in all, very busy. I feel like somehow I've managed to get busier heading towards Christmas, and that's on top of everything else I've been doing outside of hockey. But yeah, plenty of stuff going on. Comms was great fun last week. Always a really enjoyable experience. Like it was a bit of a tough one actually last week because not the most intense of games, not the most exciting of games. Technical issues as well up in the commentary box. But I should say the folk at Flames TV, Paul the producer, is a stand-up guy. He's brilliant and he just really looked after me. He's the coolest, calmest man in the world when things are going wrong. But he was brilliant. So a bit of a strange game. But really good to be to get back in the commentary box, and I will be back for the Guildford Flames because I have a date with the Flames and the Cardiff Devils on the 30th of December. So if you don't have a game to watch, by all means, buy the streams at Guildford from the Guildford Flames website, and you can listen to my dulcet tones for another couple of hours. But that obviously then led into what happened at the back end of last week. Last week's What's Current stream being pushed into Friday in my interview with Daniel Smith, which I understand has sort of been relatively well received. So thank you for all the positive comments about that. And then, of course, had Steve Nell on the show. We announced on Friday that there was an interview coming on Saturday afternoon, which I was a little bit late in posting, which was entirely my fault because I was cooking lunch at the time, and the button I thought I clicked the button and not click at the button, and it didn't work. So eventually pushed that out. But in the space of a few days, I've managed to cover a large chunk of stuff across British hockey, commentated on a knockout game, and then put out interviews with two of the really big movers and shakers in the sport right now. And I like to think that's the kind of levels worth of stuff that I can put out. And it's not to kind of denigrate anything anybody else is doing, because there's tons of people doing tons of really good stuff. What I think was, and I was having this conversation with Jack and Charlie from Macca's Talk Hockey a couple of weeks ago, actually, back when we were in Slough. And it was a case, actually it might have been in Solway, where guys and folks sort of interviewing players and kind of doing that sort of not sort of standard, but you know what I mean, like that interviewing of players. I've been around now for a while and I just want to do different things. And these guys who are younger than I am, wanting to sort of establish themselves in the scene, I'm quite happy to kind of cede the ground to them on that front and kind of do my own weird thing here at BOTW, doing different things, speaking to those folk who don't necessarily kind of get spoken to. Like Steve Nell, to my knowledge, has never done an interview with any blogger or podcaster. He's done interviews, of course, for Wildcats Media, for Knights Media, for sort of the local media associated to the clubs. But to my knowledge, Steve has never done one outside of that sphere. So the fact I was able to convince Steve to come on and do it was pretty cool. Getting the first interview literally the day after the IHA's rebrand to England Ice Hockey. And I like to think that's kind of where my place is going to be, is kind of maybe not doing some of these interviews, maybe not with the same frequency of others, and maybe not having some of those conversations of conversations with sort of players who sort of kind of come and go, but kind of doing some of those different things that people don't see. And I think that's always kind of been my sort of driving factor, to kind of do other stuff, things that other people don't do. However, what people are still doing as well is fantastic. The Macca Talks Hockey Boys, great new voice within the scene this year. Amazing stuff. Go check them out. Nikki and 4000 Accounting, of course, getting you that sort of players experience eye into how things are doing. Always go and check out what Nikki's doing if you can. Zero Pucks Given with Ben, who's asking different questions to people. And Ben's still quite new to the sport. and new to podcasting, but he's getting different people on who are not just kind of in hockey, but in that kind of hockey sphere, talking to folk, like life coaches, fitness coaches, talking to, getting the women on, getting that kind of focus as well, especially on South One, which is a really good league, but devoid of interest. And then you've got stuff like the Dragon's Tail blog up in D-side, and they're looking at North One, and of course you get all of his lad Charlie's bits and pieces from that too. Excellent stuff. There's lots kind of going on, but what I like to think over the last few days is I kind of put my marker back down about what it is that BOTW puts into the space. And I've always tried to give people interesting stuff. That's kind of what I've been trying to do. And speaking of interesting, boy, have we had a ton of news over the last little while, including news today. Ed Bradley, gone from the Bristol Pitbulls. Long rumoured, it should be said. And it should also be said there were some rumours knocking around that he was heading just a little bit east to the Swindon Wildcats. But instead, he goes back to the team that he knows. And Ed Bradley has joined the Bees as of this evening. Great signing for the Bees on that front, it should be said. I really think this is a good move for the Bees. The budget situation is interesting. Because given that the Bees don't get the biggest of crowds, you'd have to hope that Bradley's not on tons of money, or potentially people are being moved on, or are so injured that they're kind of out of the lineup for long term here. But what Bradley's going to add is a bit of secondary scoring depth and a bit of offense from the back end. Because obviously Stuart Mogg, very, very adept at doing these kind of things. You've got Liam Morris, who can kind of bounce between forward and defence, but Morris is a much better forward than he is a defender, right? So what Bradley offers is back-end security and stability, kind of. His defence is definitely not the best, but he's very much an offensive defenceman, and the emphasis is on the first part of that word. But relatively positionally solid, an extra body on D that the Bees really do need, and it lets their forwards who have been having to guest on D move back up front and keep going. And it should be said, I really think this is a good one as well, and it's just an extra really solid defensive minded thing. Now Bradley is not at the level he was a couple of years ago where he made All-Star. Obviously that move to Bristol, from my understanding, he's Bath based because of university, so being in Bristol obviously made sense. A new team coming through, less travel, etc. But where Bristol has been a bit on shaky ground this year, the option for Bradley to kind of move on and do different things and go and play for the Bees, a team that he knows very well, but also a team, that having had experience of its ownership. Bristol's ownership is great. Richard Hargreaves is superb, but it also should be said that the Bees' ownership, having had the chance to interact with them over the last little while, they're solid guys as well. So he's going to get looked after. He gets to play with people he knows. Obviously, that forward top end for the Bees we know is very, very good. Although, of course, they've just come off the back of an 8-game losing streak that they finally snapped last weekend. But I think this is a good move. I think this is a good move for the Bees, and I think this is kind of a consolidation move for Bradley, where Bristol are clearly struggling this year. And what Bradley potentially needs to do is change of scenery to kind of reinvigorate and remind people what it is he can do. And of course, if where you've got some more, sort of defensively minded guys, like for example a Brendan Baird. I mean, Brendan Baird is much more forward minded than his brother, for example, but Brendan's not a big point scorer. Could you put Bradley and Baird together, for example, and have one guy hang back, allowing Baird to kind of do what Stuart Mogg does, which is look for those opportunities to join the rush, lead the breakout as well. And I think Bradley's going to be a really, really big part of solidifying a playoff spot for the Bees. Because having watched a fair bit of the Bees this year, I think they're good enough to be a playoff team this year. I think they can do it. What they're getting sucked into, along with the Steel Dogs, is kind of that bottom 5 playing for 2 spots in the playoffs, and I think it's there is a lot of potential there for. I mean, Bristol have shown flashes. Solway have shown that they are brilliant value for money, but they need to be consistent. The Raiders, wildly inconsistent, but again, tons of quality. The Bees, of course, have just gone on this massive losing run, having started so well, which is obviously frustrating for them. But they've now got Ed Bradley in the lineup. Britton Priest is back and fit. Vitali seems to be settling as well there. And then you've got the Steel Dogs, who, like I say, I've watched this past weekend, and clearly there's tons of good stuff there, but none of it worked. And then in the third period, when the game was absolutely lost, they let the kids just run free, and the kids look good for Sheffield. The kids look good. Obviously, not the quality enough to be able to overtake a team with like Aaron Nell and Tomasz Malazinski and Balin Pikozzi and Gael Labuele scoring a hat-trick and Colby Tower and Reed Sayers. Oh my days, Reed Sayers was brilliant on Saturday too. But the future looks bright if those kids can develop in the right way. And that's going to be the true test, I think, for the Steel Dogs going forward on that one. But yeah, lots of stuff going on there. That's obviously been mentioned. We've had a few other bits and pieces flying around. Great Britain's under-20 course featured a bevy of NIHL talent. Unfortunately, coming unstuck right at the end. Of course, having lost in the extras to Lithuania meant they needed a win last weekend against Korea. They needed to win in regulation to get themselves the gold medal. And they were 3-1 up, and Korea, who are superbly funded and looked brilliant the entire thing. There was suspicions over their net minding, but their forwards were great. Korea pulled themselves back to 3-all. Martin Grubb, he rolled the dice like he had to do, pulled Ben Norton, who had a superb tournament in net for GB, pulled him for the extra skater, and unfortunately, Korea found the empty net. With Lithuania winning the final game of the tournament against China, it meant that Britain had to make do with bronze, but bronze in a home world championship for the under-20s. Sometimes it just doesn't work. You can roll you roll the dice, you can play the cards, and it just doesn't fall for you. What I think we saw was a lot of really good things. Ben Norton, of course, who's been shelled in Bristol this year, showing that he has got the qualities to be able to push on and be a really good netminder with a defence in front of him. Kel Beattie leading brilliantly from the back. Malik Martelli as a captain, not scoring tons of points, which has generally been his game, but showing a really well-rounded defensive game as well. Jack Hopkins, top point scorer in the tournament in a home world championship, which is fantastic. And of course, a brilliant job across the week by Owen Blackstock and Andy Glenn. They were joined by a variety of people, from Liam Stenton to Caitlin Berry, of course, from England Ice Hockey. Tons of folk joined them on the comms. Great job in terms of the broadcasting, all for free. What a revelation that was, everybody. Free ice hockey in Britain. Who'd have thought it? Also, as well, speaking of Dumfries, we've had the other big move as well, which is the departure of Callie Robertson from the Milton Keynes Lightning with that massive log jam of forwards. And now, with both Hamill brothers having been pretty decent for GB and having had a good run of form with the Lightning going into that tournament, a log jam of forwards in Buckinghamshire, which means that Callie Robertson heads back across the border. He goes back to Scotland and back to Solway. Goes and plays for Solway, which is a great bit of offensive addition for the Sharks. Of course, if he settles, one of the things the Sharks have struggled with is goals from depth. Obviously, Dunbar, Peacock, and Kieran Hare, of course, has been on that top line with them, can be relied on for goals. Scotty Henderson's chipping in a bit, but there's not tons of goals coming from lots of people. Sorry, Nolan Gardner as well, of course, definitely needs mentioning in that discussion. But having somebody who can slot in on that second line and kind of work hopefully well with Gardner to kind of add some extra offensive punch for the Sharks, going to be huge, because the one thing they've been able to do is score goals, but maybe not enough goals, and especially where the defence kind of fluctuates a bit and where the depth is not necessarily pushed on as much as they'd like to. Solway maybe have to transition to winning games 6-5, 7-5, 6-4, 5-3, making sure they can put goals on the board if they know that goals are going to go in at the other end. And that's not particularly a comment on Callum Hepburn and Curtis Warburton, who I think have been pretty decent so far this year, especially Cal in his first year in the division. But where like I say, team defence-wise, they just seem to struggle with keeping everything together. And if you know you're going to leak goals, it's the whole Pirates philosophy. We're going to concede goals, so we're going to make sure we score more goals. If they're going to score 6, we're going to score 7, and that's really, really important on that front as well. But a big signing, really good, and this is what Solway as well can do. Those young Scottish players who before had to move hours and hours away from home, now necessarily don't have to. Those guys kind of coming up through the SNL. And you think as well that Solway have had this raft of 16, 17-year-olds they've been farming out to Widnes. And when they're ready, they can come home as well. And there's guys playing in the SNL who maybe want a challenge to step up and can do a job there. Solway has the real potential to be Scottish hockey's shop window into the higher tiers here. It worked for John McBean last year, of course, now fully with Dundee. And you can only imagine there's a few players, Robertson himself, this puts eyes back on him. If he's going to be If he's going to be in Dumfries, Glasgow becomes an option. Fife becomes an option. The opportunity to get elite league looking, especially in Fife, who have got so many injuries at the moment. They just need a warm body anywhere at all. Plenty to be done there. Let's just have a quick squiz then at the chat, because obviously there's a few bits going on. As someone who's experienced with writing articles, doing interviews and overall covering the sport, what's your tips or values for those wanting to do this but unsure how to approach it? I think the thing I'd say, because I approach this Sigala from a writer's perspective, where that was my start, and it's all just kind of expanded from there. And so the big things for me, the really big things for me, are sometimes it's process over outcome, and because for me it's that writing aspect, and not everything you write always sees the light of day, is the one thing I'd say. You will write stuff, and and not just in the sense of, I need to edit this out, but sometimes you'll write stuff and it just doesn't work, and you have to just admit and just be happy that you got something out of your system, and you look at it and you go, that's fine, and it goes away. The other things for me in terms of tips or values, honesty, and it sounds really pithy to say that, but it's really true. If you want to speak to somebody, don't blindside them. I want to talk to you about this. Are you happy to talk about it? But also as well, it's that honesty, but also having those lines where I've refused interviews because they wanted all of the questions beforehand. I've said no, and where they've said no, I'm not doing this without this, and I've had to say, that's cool, we're not doing it then, because for me, an interview is made off of the conversation, and if you know what's coming, then I don't think that's fair, especially when I'm kind of doing interviews where I'm wanting to challenge people on it. Do I give people an idea of where I'm going to take the conversation? Yes, because I think that's fair. What I don't want is, what does make for a good interview is people sort of being wide-eyed, rabbit in the headlights sometimes. So giving people a rough idea of the direction of travel, I don't have an issue with, but I always never give people all the questions. The other big tips are to prepare, but don't over prepare, because I think if you then get thrown a curveball yourself from the other side, you don't want to just kind of break down. And it sounds really dumb, but just enjoy it. Like, enjoy the opportunity you're getting, and you can't start at the top. You do have to kind of work your way up with people, but if you can find the means to do it, ask the questions. The worst people can say is no. That's the worst they can say. Is no. And eventually, when you work at it after a while, people will realise that you're not here to take the mick, and you're not there to do things in the wrong way. That those doors open, and those doors open, and those doors open. I am the example completely of hard work beating natural ability, because I didn't become good at this overnight. I do like to think I'm all right at it now, but it's been worked at. It's been over a decade of writing when I didn't feel well, interviewing people when I wasn't, where I'd done prep and just sometimes didn't know what to say. I of course do have my own process, and I think actually the other thing I'd say, develop your own process. Like, don't copy. You can take bits and pieces. We're all amalgams of other bits and pieces of our life and experience and our likes and our dislikes and stuff. But just try to do your own thing in your own way, and believe in it. Just believe in it. I think that's the thing, for all the eccentricities in our own lives and the things that we do and the things that we don't like. Back yourself. This is there are some areas of my life where I'm a little bit uncertain. There are some areas of my life where things aren't always going as well as I'd like them to. But this is the one area where actually, I've earned the right to stand on my own 2 feet and say, this is what you're getting. Play ball or don't play ball. It's entirely up to you. I think it sounds really, I don't want it to sound pretentious, but I've earned the right now because I've put out consistent, or tried to put out consistent quality for a long time. And I think it's in the last 4 or 5 years, I think it's really started to show, in my opinion. So I'm quite pleased about that. I hope Eddie Bebris isn't too badly injured. He took a big knock on Sunday, struggled off the ice. Thankfully, Cowley was able to take his spot. Yep, that's who you should have put on defence in the first place, Swindon. The guy who's used to playing D. I did hear people say Eddie was walking normally after the game, just precautionary. Well, indeed, I was going to say, with so many games, you don't want a guy who's getting hurt all the time. Jack Hopkins to Lightning on the tour with commentary is heavily rumoured. It is, Jamie, yep. Not heard tons and tons and tons and tons. But on that front. But obviously, have I heard that? Have I heard that one doing the rounds? Absolutely have. Yes, like I say, just like I'd heard reportedly Ed Bradley to Swindon and Ed Bradley to Bees, only one of those was right. So there we go on that front. Either way, let's. He says, what have I pressed there? I've not pressed the right thing. There we go. It's all come up. Hooray! Technology is a wonderful thing. So let's just have a quick bash through last weekend's results in the National Division, which of course gives me the opportunity to kind of talk about some more about where I was last weekend. And of course, as we were doing last week's BOTW What's Current stream with Daniel Smith, we had Hull and Solway. Win for Hull there at home. 6-3 win for the Seahawks. As always with the Sharks, kind of ran them close. Couldn't get it over the line. And unfortunately, that's just how it ends up there. Heading into Saturday then, Bristol come close at home against Peterborough, but if there's any team that you can trust on the road to sneak out a 1-goal win and annoy the locals, it's going to be the Peterborough Phantoms. 4-3 there. Congratulations as well to Slava Kulikov this weekend, marking the 10th anniversary of his coaching stint in Peterborough. And I said it on Twitter, and I'll say it again now. For all of my complaints stylistically about how they play, about how unenjoyable I find it, 10 years coaching, running a team like that, it has to be commended. It has to be applauded. They've obviously won bits and pieces into that bargain as well. But so congratulations to Slava on the achievement. Very, very well, very well done on that front. Here's to whatever comes next. May it be another 10 years or whatever. Hopefully you are happy and healthy and rocking and rolling, good sir. So all the best from us here. Elsewhere on Saturday, a tough one for the MK Lightning, but they do manage to overcome the Bees. 5-2 there as they obviously look to keep pushing on, given the title race is ever increasingly becoming close again to what it was last year. But a big one there, and the 8th game dropped in a row, that one for the Bees. Elsewhere on Saturday, though, a big win down the bottom of the table for the Raiders. They win by 6-5 in overtime in Telford against the Tigers. Huge there for the Raiders, given their recent run of bad form, as well as goalie injuries all over the place. Adam Long playing both games the weekend before. And now Matt Smittle stepping into the breach as the temporary netminder with both Ethan James and Brad Windibank out. Good for Matt Smittle to get the opportunity, of course. Great to see him back on the ice after leaving Bristol and kind of everything that's happened there. And then, of course, Saturday, the Lynx Centre. Swindon at home, finally, for the first time in the regular season, with the 8-2 win over Sheffield. The full write-up's over on bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. What I will speak on was certainly the one thing I think may not have been talked about a lot. There was an issue towards the end of the first period where the ice in one of the corners just clearly wasn't sat properly, and the first actually in Swindon ends up getting called at about the 18:25 mark. Clearly issues there. Mr. Ions and Mr. Jarvie, the officials, not happy with something, and actually it kind of came at a good moment, because if this had happened in the middle of the period, it would have been quite hard, and you do wonder whether they'd have gone on and left it a little bit. But actually, so close to the end of the first, it was a sensible thing to do and a good decision by the officials and the teams. Actually, call the first break there. Everybody head off, do some work on the ice, run the Zamboni around to see if it sticks, and eventually they kind of managed to get it to a point where everybody was happy enough to let it go on. Didn't massively affect the game in any way, really, just because, I mean, Sheffield just weren't at the races for this at all. Obviously, guys missing, no Hayward, no Brammer, no Bissonnette, but I expected a bit more out of their top six in terms of kind of an offensive generation, but nothing worked really. There was a point in this game where the top line of Hewitt, Phillips and Volkanovs were out for, it must have been close to 2.5 minutes, and just generated nothing at all. Just didn't work. The Wildcats had their number, eased them out of the game, and then they let the kids run loose, and Aidan Dancer scores his first ever senior goal. Released his first Steel Dogs goal. Brilliant result there. And ultimately, with the game well out of reach, it just allowed the Steel Dogs a little bit of freedom. Like, well, we're not going to win. Go and play. And that was brilliant for the youngsters. Reed Sayers and Tate Shudra, though, I should have mentioned him earlier. Tate Shudra, as well, looks very, very good this year. Whatever it was at the beginning of the year from playing at Blackburn, that just kind of allowed the switch in his head to twist, has been really, really beneficial for him. and even in the midst of all of this, looked really, really good. Sayers, of course, is easy to look brilliant when you're absolutely caning everybody and you score really nice top shelf goals past Dimitri Zimostra. But yeah, I mean, Shudra as well. I think, with Cole playing in the Elite League now with Sheffield, and takes kind of the last one left in the NIHL. This young man is going to have a future, and this year might be the coming up, and next year might be the breaking out. I think really for Tate on that one. But yeah, he looked brilliant. There were a couple of issues with the ice around the boards again on Sunday, but again, nothing that seemed too concerning. Hopefully something they'll sort out as the work goes on. Yeah, that's the other thing in Swindon. Almost got high huffing industrial solvent from some of the places. Steve Nell, of course, having spoken to Steve Nell during the week, he did come over and say hello to me, and there was a portion of kind of red carpet on the floor. He said to me, look, we've rolled out the red carpet for you. And I said, yeah. And there's also piles of rubbish in the crack in the floor. It's like being back in Basingstoke. That was Saturday. Then Sunday, the streak is finally over. The Bees have got a win back in the win column, and they end up in overtime with the Telford Tigers and Marcel Balazs, who has scored so many goals for them so far this year. The man on the doorstep. Great work by Liam Morris to set it all up, and Balazs the beneficiary there to tap it home. The losing streak snaps at 8, and the Bees are finally back in the win column. Not a great weekend for the Tigers in the fact that they lost both games, but 2 points rather than none. I mean, 2 points is not as good as 4, but 2 points is definitely better than 0. So, the tenacity of Tommy Watkins' side, of course, with Watkins not there to coach the game because he was assisting Martin Grubb with the GB under-20s. Elsewhere, and again, another 0-point weekend for the Sharks. They lose 5-3 in Peterborough against the Phantoms. Again, they come close, but not close enough. The Steel Dogs, though, do rebound with a few of the guys missing from Saturday night, playing in Romford against the Raiders, and the Dogs come away with the 4-2 victory there. So not a good Saturday night, but a much better rebound on Sunday. Kind of symptomatic of the Dogs' season so far, it should be said. Swindon then had their second home game of the weekend and of this ridiculous run they're about to put themselves on. But they do drop this leg of the Nell Classico. It does go to overtime, so 3 points from 4 for the Cats on their return weekend home. But Jordan Boysa with the overtime winning goal, because of course it's the Knights. Knights are relentless, and there's no way to easily push them aside. And they win the big games by blowing teams out, and they win the tight games. But it should also be said, I don't know what the point streak in the last sort of 5-10 games for Tomasz Malazinski, but the man is rolling back the years at the moment. That penalty shot goal from Sunday, absolutely beautiful. And then Bristol, who of course did really, really well on Saturday, and then on Sunday got absolutely shellacked. Hull have been, for me, the biggest success story of the season so far. Leeds doing well, not a surprise. MK doing well, not a surprise. Peterborough squeaking their way through, not a surprise. Hull being where they are, and in the Cup semi-final, massive, massive overhaul. And I think it speaks to the ability of Matty Davies, not just in terms of coaching, but that recruitment element as well, getting some of those more prodigal sons to come back home, and that just kind of is... It's been a bit of a snowball effect for Hull. They've not been perfect, of course. They've dropped games that they maybe should have won. They've won games they maybe should have lost into that bargain as well. And that resiliency from the Seahawks this year has seen them a little higher up the table. Will they finish fourth? I'm not so certain, particularly with the fact that Swindon are starting to really get motoring now. But a top half finish for the Seahawks after finishing bottom last season, huge. Absolutely huge for Matty Davies and Joe Lamplow, the ownership up at Hull. Brilliant, brilliant result if they're able to get away with it. Just seeing that there, Jamie. Yes, as Amber has mentioned in the chat, I do believe Dongabai has an illness at the moment, but I believe he should hopefully be back before too long. Either way then, just a quick look at the upcoming fixtures, because... There's a lot going on. In fact, there's a game tomorrow evening as the Wildcats continue the homestand of all homestands. 7:30 tomorrow at the Link, the Wildcats and the Bees. The last game in Slough was really, really dull and was basically lit on fire by Tomasz Malazinski deciding he wanted to just do everything. So hopefully it'll be a bit of a better game this time around on the whole. Friday then, 7:30 at the Castle, Yorkshire Derby. The Leeds Knights take on the Hull Seahawks. Big game for the Seahawks there, because that's one of their games in hand over MK. Saturday then, a relatively full docket and no Sunday games. this week because, of course, it's Christmas Eve. So what we get on Saturday, 4:30 at Sheffield, the Steel Dogs and the Bees will do battle. 5:15 at Sapphire Ice and Leisure, a horrible journey for the Solway Sharks. Just before Christmas, they take on the Raiders in Romford at 5:15. 5:30pm face-off then at the Wales West versus Isle Arena. Hull and Leeds will swap over from the night before. 6:30pm at the Link Centre, because of course it is. The Swindon Wildcats take on the Telford Tigers. And 7pm in the Southwest, the Bristol Pitbulls and the MK Lightning will take each other on. And then before we head into next week, Tuesday, Boxing Day, 4pm in Slough for the Bees and the Raiders. A 2pm face-off in Swindon on Boxing Day between the Wildcats and the Pitbulls. Of course, with no Basingstoke around, Swindon have to play somebody on Boxing Day. It might as well be the Battle of the Southwest. And then a 7:30pm face-off at the Castle between the Knights and the Sharks. We've then got a bunch of games next Wednesday, including 3 that we don't have face-off times for at the moment, according to NHLstats.wordpress.com. Shout out to Joe Scutts as always. But of course, we would normally be live at about 8 o'clock. So what we're going to probably do is, like I say, probably do a bit of a Soccer Saturday style. Sit here, chat. We won't go through tons and tons. What we'll do is we'll kind of have all the scores up. Probably do like an hour, and we just all sit and chat. And if you're not at a game, we'll just kind of rattle our way through and see what people think about it on that front on that Wednesday. We'll probably try and see if I can speak to some folk and see if they want to come and join the party for that one, and we'll see what we do. It should be a fun time. So what we'll do is we'll then quickly just have a quick squiz at the National Division table before we then go crashing through the remainder of the games. If we look at the Cup, as we can see, MK and Leeds already qualified, as are Hull, and then it is going to be a case of pretty much of 2 teams. Swindon and Peterborough are the ones kind of heading towards it at the moment. The Cats and the Phantoms are able to get 26 points. Swindon, though, have to run the table. They don't really have an option on that front. But if Swindon win out and win all of their games, they should make the Cup semi-finals for another time. And then, in which case, we head to the actual league table itself. He says pressing all the wrong buttons, and it's all just going wrong. Yeah, there we go. But there we are. The MK Lightning still top of the table, 38 points from 24 games played. Leeds in second, 2 points behind and 3 games in hand. So the ball very much in the Leeds Knights' court at the moment. Peterborough then in third, 34 from 25. Hull in fourth, 28 from 21. So still the opportunity for the Seahawks to grab that third spot. As is there for the Swindon Wildcats now, up to 5th place, 26 from 20. Telford, 24 from 23, so a good advantage there for Swindon in terms of holding on to a top half finish. Sheffield, 20 from 23, and the Bees, 20 from 23. Obviously a mixed weekend for both sides there, but the end of that massive losing streak for the Bees. Outside the playoffs then, the Raiders, 17 from 24, Solway, 15 from 24, and Bristol, 13 from 24. So the Bees and the Steel Dogs with the advantage over for those last 2 playoff spots, and they have a game in hand over over the 3 teams outside of the playoff spots at the moment. But you never know, just never quite know what's going to happen on that one. What we'll do very quickly then, he says just I see there's a few things sort of rattling through in the chat at the moment as well. He says also just shuffling a few things around on his screen. What else we got on there? Not entirely sure on the point streak, but I think it's 12 goals in 5 games from Malazinski over the last 3 weeks. Controversial opinion, but the games between Leeds, MK and Swindon have that bit more intensity compared to the games in the league, the rest of the games in the league, and of course high quality. I'll massively disagree on that one, Jamie, because I think the intensity thing fluctuates. I've watched the Leeds game with the Bees wasn't particularly intense, but it was tight. But it was also very high quality, and I think that's just being a little bit simplistic on that front, if I'm 100% honest. Great to see Andrew Day as ever. Crazy start to the second in Telford. Raiders 3-1 up at the start of the period. Lucas scores, Ferguson scores, 3-all. Raiders timeout, Sylvester scores and Wells scores. Yeah, went a bit mad right at the beginning of the second there. Back-to-back hat-tricks followed by 3 consecutive 2-goal games. Yep, Smithell played Saturday. Save Louis Newell going clear and a penalty shot in overtime. Massive, huge result for him personally. 7 p.m. in Peterborough Bristol and Raiders. Raiders versus Bees 7:30, although each team website says a different face-off time. Brilliant, helpful. As long as it's 100% next Wednesday, happy to send any information, discuss anything live from the Sapphire. Always appreciate Andrew. We always love your contributions here. I'll be streaming Phantoms versus Lightning next Wednesday. We'll update the key on the key game for the Cup in Breton. Thank you very much, Jamie. Of course, we'll be sat. We'll be sat here. Like I said, we'll try and get a few folk in to kind of have a chat. Always appreciated on that one. He says, why am I getting messages flashing up? Who is messaging me? Oh, my sister. My sister is definitely definitely allowed to message me. Better respond to her though, given the fact she has a 3-month-old, my little nephew. Better at least answer her. There we go. Like I say, it's one of those people that you do have to kind of respond to. At least I'm told you have to respond to family in those situations. And especially my sister. I quite like my sister. She's great. Right then, let's have a look at the rest of the National Ice Hockey League structure, and we will head off to North 1. The Hull Jets win at home. What a crushing surprise that is for everybody. And a humdinger of a game between the Jets and the Deeside Dragons. Of course, the Dragons are a massive upswing in form from as opposed to their start. But it's the Jets with the 2 points. A 7-6 overtime win for Hull as they look to continue a decent start to their first season in NHL 1 North. Solihull, of course, who've been hot on the heels of Billingham with a good win at the NIC on the big pad. A 6-2 win for the Barons over the Nottingham Lions, who have struggled to pick up points in the last couple of months, all things considered. As have the Sheffield Scimitars. They lose at home by 3-1 against the Widnes Wild, who will be looking to kind of cement that 7th spot in the table. The Wild, of course, not been brilliant this year, have been dragged into that kind of wooden spoon race with the Lions and the Scimitars. Big win for the Wild, that one. Whitley Warriors, of course, have lost Kyle Powell. He's gone down to Bristol and was effectively kind of a tryout for a little while. Maybe they could have used an extra defenseman. A 4-2 win for the Blackburn Hawks this past Sunday over the Warriors as their attempt to kind of finally get back to the top of North 1 falters again. Deeside, though, respond from their overtime loss and get a 3-point weekend as they give the Nottingham Lions a bit of a kicking over in North Wales. An 8-2 win for the Welsh side. Solihull get their 4-point weekend, but are pushed pretty close, having the Scimitars take them all the way to overtime. An important point for the Scimitars in the playoff race, but Solihull again picking up a 4-point weekend. And then the league-leading Billingham Stars, who seem to be almost unstoppable at the moment, almost becoming the new Solway. A 7-1 win for the Stars on Merseyside against Widnes to help them through on that one to maintain their league-leading position. No games, of course, though, for in NHL North now. Christmas all done and dusted. No games in the North until the weekend of the 6th and 7th of January. Well, that means, though, in terms of the league tables, as we have a quick look, we skip down to the Cup table, and we as the semi-finals of the Moray League Cup. So Solihull, Billingham and Blackburn still the only teams qualified. Solihull still technically top of the Cup table, but Billingham do have for game in hand there, and then it's a battle really between Deeside, Hull and Whitley for that last spot in the Cup semi-finals. In terms of the league itself, though, as we can see, Billingham still pushing their way ahead, but Solihull really starting to put the pressure on now. Billingham 32 from 19, Solihull 30 from 20. Not impossible task by any stretch of the imagination, as the Barons appear to be emerging as the ones who are going to lead the chasing pack. A 5-point gap then to the Deeside Dragons, who are 25 from 19, so of course they could cut the points gap to 3. Blackburn 24 from 18 in 4th. Whitley 23 from 21, so played a lot more games in 5th. Hull 19 from 18 in 6th. Widnes 12 from 19, and then the battle has taken another twist. The Scimitars have 8 points and 2 games in hand over Nottingham, who've played 20 games for only 7 points. It's advantage Scimitars for the last playoff spot in North 1. One of the other big games of the weekend, or at least one of the games that's always really exciting whenever it comes to NIHL action, was down in South 1 this past weekend, where it gave us the opportunity again of one of my favourite ties of the weekend. But of course, Had to kind of go to Swindon. I was meant to go to Swindon for so long and took the opportunity. But the Red Hawks do the business in Gosport against the Devils. These are games that always have a bit of extra bite to them, have done for the last couple of years, but the Devils are brushed aside with ease by Ben Painter's side. A 6-1 win for the Red Hawks, who continue their dominance at the top of the table. Another bad weekend for the Oxford City Stars. Shut out at home against the Invicta Dynamo. 7-0 the Stars go down against Carl Lennon's side. And the Dynamos really starting to feel like they press on. A tougher game for the Chelmsford Chieftains a bit further up the table in the local derby. The Romford Buccaneers, and I said, if you underestimate the Buccaneers, they're going to give you a bloody nose. And the Chieftains were made to battle for this one, but Lewis Clifford's side do come away with the 2 points and a 5-4 win. Slough got back to winning ways. They had a really bad weekend last weekend. 0 points for the first time this season, but a home game against the MK. They had 0 points for the weekend before last, but an 8-2 win against the MK Thunder this past Saturday. Hugely important for them as they look to keep the pressure on. Sunday then, big goals all over the place. The game on the high road though, this extra cup competition, the Britain Cup. Streatham win by 10 goals to 2 over Chelmsford, but no league points on the line. Almost a tactical loss in some ways for the Chieftains, because obviously the league very much the focus there. MK shipped 13 goals at home to the Invicta Dynamos. A really good weekend for Carl Lennon's side. 20 goals in just 2 games, as well as getting league and cup points out of their opponents into the bargain. No games over Christmas. The first game in South 1 is not till Wednesday the 3rd of January. A 7:15 face-off in Slough between the Jets and the Solent Devils. We'll then pull up the table. What have we got there? So you see goals coming through from the Elite League. Sheffield 4-0 up in the second leg of the Challenge Cup there against Manchester. So I make that 9-1 on aggregate. Goals for Brandon Whistle and Cole Shudra, which is pretty good. And Belfast 3-0 up against Coventry, so that's probably that side to side. Of course, the 1-0 going into tonight's game between the Blaze and the Giants. If we scoot down then, here is the Britain Cup. Most teams have only played 2 games and there's only 5 teams in it. But Streatham and Invicta leading the way so far. Oxford, Slough and Chelmsford all on 0 points. But the Jets have lost 2 games in this Britain Cup competition already. In the actual South Cup itself, Slough lead Streatham, but Streatham do have a game in hand. The Jets, the Red Hawks and the Chieftains have already sealed qualification. The Devils kind of in the driving seat on this one though. Invicta have 16 from 14 currently occupy 4th, but 14 from 12 for the Devils. If they win the requisite games they need to, they should take the final playoffs, the final cup semi-final spot. And then we have the league table itself. 3 teams on 26 points at the top of the table, but it's very much advantage champions. The Red Hawks have only played 16 games compared to 19 for the Chieftains and 18 for the Jet. Meaning that Ben Painter's side, if they can win those important games in hand, are going to be the ones sitting pretty still atop the table, as they already are. The Red Hawks, of course, as well, only 3 games lost so far this season, which is as many as they lost in all of last season. Invicta in 4th, then after their good recent run, 21 from 18, a 5-point gap between 3rd and 4th. Solent 18 from 15 after their walloping by the Red Hawks, but plenty of games in hand there that could get them up into 4th spot. Romford 12 from 17, Oxford 8 from 17, and the MK Thunder only 14 games played, so still some opportunity there. And Oxford, as you can see from the last column here, able to finish on the same number of points, but it does feel like Oxford potentially just got a little bit of extra quality over the MK Thunder going forward. We then move to North 2, as we know. It's been the story, of course, at the top of that league has been between Telford and Sutton. But of course, Coventry have been slowly easing their way into that discussion, but they drop a clanger. Billingham Buccaneers, of course, we had their big apology and suspensions, of course. Chris Lutz getting a 14-game suspension in the end, and words are he will not play for the rest of the year as a result. But Billingham get a 3-1 win in the Sky Dome against the Blaze, a massive, massive result for the Buccaneers, who, aside from all of the gubbins about their recent antics, firstly, complete a 60 minutes, well done then, and secondly, get 2 massive points on the road. The Buccaneers are really making a push to make sure that they get that 4th spot. Another huge win as well for the Kingston Sharks. That bottom of the table clash between them and the Nottingham Lions, and the Sharks squeak out a 6-5 win. Huge for them in their first season. Of course, didn't win for so long, and have now almost got a little bit of a run together in terms of some half decent form. Elsewhere on Saturday, Sheffield beat Bradford by 7 goals to 5, so a good win for the Titans. And Sutton keep up their pressure on Telford with a 6-2 win against the Altrincham Aces. Coventry, though, then get back to winning ways the next night. Two sides that had lost on the Saturday meet in Manchester. A 4-3 win for the Blaze against the Aces there. So good for Coventry, as I've had a bit of a slip up, much in the same way Telford slipped up against Coventry earlier in the season. The Sting with a decent win, a 5-0 win in Bradford against the Bulldogs to keep up pressure there. And Nottingham, well, they go down again and are rooted firmly to the bottom. They lose by 7 goals to 1 in the NIC against the Sheffield Titans. There is one game between Christmas and New Year in North 2, as we can see, at the world's most versatile arena. Saturday the 13th of December, a 5:30 face-off between the Kingston Sharks and the Sutton Sting. It was the Sharks who got their first win of the season against the Sting, who are in the midst of their title charge. Can the Sharks do it again? Becomes the big question there. Oh, I'm pressing all the wrong buttons. There we go. As we look, there's no extra cups or anything like that. As we look into the cup semi-finals, we're still in the same position. Telford, Sutton and Coventry have all qualified, but 2 teams here on 14 points. It is advantage Titans, though, because the Sheffield Titans have played 1 game less than the Billingham Buccaneers, both on 14 points. Altrincham, well, they would need results to go their way, but they're not officially out of the woods yet on that one. But you would assume it's probably going to be between Billingham and Sheffield for that final semi-final place. In the league itself, then, Telford still top of the table. That 1 defeat in 18 games, 34 from 18, Sutton 32 from 19, and then Coventry still hanging around there, 29 from 20, but of course that defeat against Billingham really, really has dented their chances of pushing towards the league title. Sheffield, with their good weekend, they're now up into 4th, 20 from 18 for the Titans, over 19 from 19 for the Buccaneers. A 9-9-1 record in their first season is pretty decent. That one game, of course, being that tie that was from their game that was abandoned in Billingham. Altrincham then in 6th, 14 from 18. Bradford 11 from 17, and then Kingston. Well, another good result for them means that they have really pushed themselves away from the Nottingham Lions. Officially clear, 6 points from 18, over 3 from 17. Means that even if the Lions won their game in hand, they could not overcome the Sharks in the league table at the moment. The Lions, of course, still yet to win at home. The only team, to my understanding, in the league to do that. Although let's double check Oxford Rising Stars momentarily on that one. And then the last, of course, let's head towards South 2. Busy league, always a very, very busy league, and plenty of exciting bits and pieces, of course, over the last weekend as well. Massive game in Basingstoke on the Sunday, but let's look at Saturday first. The Guildford Phoenix, of course, continued their ridiculous run. Their undefeated start remains. An 11-0 win at home over the Oxford Rising Stars keeps the Phoenix very, very much in the driver's seat when it comes to the league title. And it's last year's playoff champions hosting last year's league champions, but it's a comfortable win for the Bristol Pitbulls over the Invicta Mustangs as the Pitbulls put up a 12 spot, a 12-3 win for the Pitbulls. Of course, if you missed it as well, the Pitbulls have a new Match Night Twitter account for the NIHL 2 side. The link is over on the Bristol Pitbulls Twitter. And elsewhere on Saturday, well, the league-leading Peterborough Phantoms, who, of course, were shocked recently, that defeat against Lee Valley, confusing almost everybody, including me and most of us here on the stream, but they absolutely batter the Chelmsford Warriors 16-1. A huge result as the Phantoms look to keep pace at the top of the table. Sunday then, it goes to overtime in Basingstoke, but the Haringey Huskies managed to pull out the big win there. Young Jaden Bulka with the overtime winner. Some controversy about that overtime winner, because some people are saying that all the puck didn't cross all of the line, but the official calls it Haringey win. But the Buffalo's winning run ends, but they do get a point, which very much will keep them in the playoff race if nothing else. Bristol then, having absolutely pumped Invicta the night before, lose at home in the local derby. A big win for the Cardiff Fire as they win by 3-2 and then cross back across the bridge with the points. And then Oxford, of course, there we go. There's the answer to that question. Have Oxford Rising Stars won at home? Yes, they have. They win by 7-4 against Lee Valley in what has turned out to be the battle for the wooden spoon. No games in South 2 until after Christmas. Everybody there returns on the 6th of January. Oh, I've pressed the wrong button. Well done, me. Let's then have a look at the tables. So as we've got the Cup semi-finals, of course, they have an Eastern group and a Western group. There is only still one team officially qualified in the Cup, and that is Haringey. They are the only team qualified from that Eastern group. Meanwhile, in the West, it's still very much a 3-horse race between Guildford, Basingstoke, and Bristol. There Basingstoke have now played all their games. They do need Bristol. Bristol could lose their game, but my understanding is Basingstoke hold the tiebreaker there. But it is Basingstoke waiting on what happens effectively, because they are not, of course, qualified at the moment. But Basingstoke would finish in second place, which would give them a Cup semi-final tie against Haringey. In the table itself then, Haringey remain at the top at the moment following their 6-5 win against Basingstoke, 22 from 13. Peterborough have 20 from 13. Bristol in third, 19 from 16. But then there's Guildford lurking there. They are sitting fourth, but a perfect 9 from 9. They've only played 3 away games though this season, Guildford. There is a lot of road hockey to be played by Stuart Potts' men. Basingstoke in 5th, 15 from 13. Cardiff, 14 from 13. Invicta, 12 from 11. And Streatham, the highest place of the 3 teams on 8 at the moment. They are on the inside looking out. Streatham, Chelmsford and Solent all on 8 points. Streatham have played 13, Chelmsford 12. Solent have only played 11 games, so if Harry Cloutman's lads can find a way to get some success, they could push themselves into a playoff spot. But one thing that the Devils will have to change is their wretched away record. 5 away games and not a single point to show for it. Oxford's win over Lee Valley pushes them up and above them. They now go up to 11th with 5 points from 11 games. The Lions go back to the bottom of Division 2 South. 4 points from 2 wins. The last time since pre-pandemic, the Lions have had 2 wins in a season. And so there we have it then. We've gone through absolutely everything and everyone in the National Ice Hockey League, all 5 divisions, and all the games covered, as well as all the fixtures upcoming. Let's just have a quick scoop at the chat. No change in the score there. The less said about the Basingstoke rink, the better. Sad to see. Yep. Obviously, there's been a bit more talk about it just because of how bad it's been recently. Obviously, Haringey not happy with the state of the rink that they showed up in. I don't know what they were expecting. Basingstoke should not be a surprise to anybody at this stage. And it is frustrating. And the reason why I haven't said tons about it is because there's nothing to say. What am I supposed to say that's new or that's different? We know that the rink is virtually dilapidated. And I can only get so angry about it so often. The thing I will say is, and I'm not going to go into tons about Basingstoke rink at the moment because it has sort of reignited the discussion both politically, locally, and amongst the ice sports community, obviously. I will say more in my kind of end of 2023 piece that will be coming around New Year's Eve, is probably the thing I would say there. Because, as you can appreciate, if I look back on 2023, I have had probably one of the most sort of rewarding years of what I've done in hockey in a grander sense, and I lost my team. And I'm struggling. I am personally really struggling to get my head around that because I've got so many opportunities this year, and to think that ultimately the thing that kind of pulled me into British hockey isn't there anymore, and I kind of don't have an anchor in some ways is quite odd. It's allowed me to do a lot this year as a result. But yeah, it's kind of which is the cloud and which is the silver lining a little bit. But yeah, I can't complain in a lot of ways about 2023 from a hockey perspective because look at what I've been able to do that I couldn't do in 2022 or wasn't given the chance to in 2022. But yeah, my team isn't there. And it's the great dichotomy, and it's trying to feel 2 things at the same time, and that's quite hard on that front. So yeah, Hard to know. Hard to know what to say. And we'll be a bit more reflective and look back at kind of bits and pieces next week on the What's Current stream. What we'll also do very, very quickly, he says, is just have a quick squiz, because I don't believe there were any other fixtures in the Northern League. But we will just very, very quickly have a quick squiz, just because I can see we've got a little bit of time. Let's just have a quick squiz at the Scottish League, at the SNL, and kind of see what we can see. So Kilmarnock with a good win there, 7-6 against Kirkcaldy. North Ayr lose again, another good win for the Edinburgh Capitals by 10-4. Dundee sneaking past the Aberdeen Lynx. Good win for the Tigers there, a 3-2 win over Aberdeen, as well as a win for the Dundee Comets. They beat the Paisley Pirates by 4-2. And then that's it in terms of last weekend. But we've got lots more games here in Scotland, kind of over the Christmas period. A couple on Saturday there, as we can see. The Dundee Derby, which apparently is at midnight, which is a little bit disconcerting. And then Edinburgh versus Paisley, of course. Then we've got games on the 30th and the 31st. Plenty of hockey. We've got the Comets and the Tigers and the Comets, and then the Comets and the Tigers. If they genuinely are playing at midnight, more power to them. That's pretty crazy. Even then, a game in Edinburgh at 1:30 p.m. on New Year's Eve. That could be a lot of fun, all things considered. We've also, on the 30th as well, as we can see here, there is a Northern League game on Saturday the 30th of December in Kirkcaldy between the Kestrels and the Blackburn Hawks. Of course, we are trying to keep a little bit of tabs on the Northern League as it goes. As we quickly will have a quick squiz at the Northern League. Of course, no fixtures, but just a quick reminder, as we didn't look at it last week, of what's going on there. So as we can see, Edinburgh lead the table with football 4-1. Kirkcaldy have played 3 games and a 2-1. The Hawks are 2-1-1 from their 4. Kilmarnock bottom with just the 1 overtime loss for their only points to kind of show for that. The actual SNL itself, the actual league table, it's Kirkcaldy leading the way, even though them and Aberdeen both lost. Kirkcaldy on 20 points from 15, Aberdeen 18 from 13, so the Lynx still with a good chance there. Kilmarnock up into third on a 4-game winning streak, 16 from 12. Edinburgh 16 from 11, so obviously the game in hand that could push them back into title contention. The 2 Dundee sides then both on 14 points, with the Tigers played 17 games compared to 13 for the Comets. So the Comets really not out of the discussion about pushing themselves further up as well. Paisley in 7th, 12 from 12, and North Ayr have 2 points from 17 games. Just looking there from Andrew. Thank you for the updates on the scores. 4-2. So the Blazers are slowly clawing their way back into that, which is pretty impressive to see. And 4-0 for the Steelers. That game is done. Balmas with 2 goals. No, Balmar, apologies. Shudra and Whistle. So a couple of classic British hockey names there getting goals. There we go then. We've covered kind of all the bits and pieces we need to. Not tons of fixtures to talk about, obviously, because most of the leagues are not playing anything at all over Christmas. It's just the madness of the National Division. So, there we are then. Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings. What do we reckon? Open book in terms of what we can talk about now then. Because like I say, not as much to talk about. So let's open the floodgates. What do you guys want to chuck in the chat? 4-4 now in Belfast. Bloody hell. Belfast are having a very odd year. Having a very, very odd year. I should really sit down and chat to Patrick about what's going on there. Maybe they just wanted to be a bit entertaining, but there's, Belfast have held on to that Challenge Cup for a while. Could they be about to have the ultimate surprise sprung? He says, quickly pulling up his Twitter just to double check there's not other bits and pieces going on. Any other news for anybody else? A somewhat cryptic tweet there from the Dragons from about 4 hours ago. Nothing else in the immediacy. I can see. Although, of course, obviously, if you aren't, Joe Scutts from NHL Stats is putting bits and pieces. Is obviously the stats starting to come up. They've gone up from North One and South One today. Do check those out. Great bits of work. The ridiculousness of the fact that Jack Goodchild has 51 points and 24 goals in what was that, 18 games this year is pretty mental. We're just looking at that sort of top scorer chart there for South One. Goodchild 51, Brindley Caps of Romford with 45, so you consider what season he's having. Seb Moore of Slough with 45, Stanislav Laschek and Victor with 42, and Luke Pascali of Romford with 33. There is not a single, there is only one Streatham player inside the top 10, and that's Ewan Hill, and even then he's now sort of with he's been with Romford, and he has 29 points. But there is not a single, there's not a single Streatham player inside that top 10. That's how ridiculous Streatham are, and how much bits and pieces get spread around. Whereas Jack Goodchild is the top point scorer, third in goals, first in power play goals, first in power play assists, first in power play points, first in short-handed goals. I think that young man needs to be in the national division. Meanwhile, if we have a quick squiz as well from what Joe's put out, if we look in the, we'll just quickly pull up the North One stats as well. 3 of the top 4 all play for Billingham. Nicholas Otterson of Solihull is the top point scorer in the division with 62, followed by Chris Sykes on 56, Roylands Grittans on 50, and Michael Elder on 48, which is pretty crazy. Otterson, if we look at this, is top of points, goals, power play assists, power play points in that division as well. Top, which is just crazy, utterly crazy. And Billingham have 4 of the top 10 goal scorers as well. Rumours on THF Blackburn can join the National League for next season. Nothing I've heard myself on that one, Jamie. And I mean, we should also actually mention that as well, because THF, which is one of the first things that got me into speaking to other British hockey fans, ends on the 31st of December after umpteen years, where it's diminished in its value, I think, over the years. And it's diminished in its impact that it's had on British hockey in the moment. But crazy to think of how many people I've met through THF. And I was on THF for a really long time, and I just kind of migrated away to it. The discussion just wasn't there. The traction for kind of getting people to look at BOTW wasn't there. And we just grew in a different direction. But I'm very, very thankful for what THF did and what THF gave me, which was an opportunity to kind of talk to people. And I met some very frustrating people from it as well, people who didn't know how to argue properly and people who wouldn't listen to opposite points of view. And they probably felt the same about me. But, it's the era of forums on the internet in some ways. I mean, Twitter was a great and a bad thing for hockey all at once. But to see THF go, there's a little piece of my hockey history that kind of disappears with it. So it'll be sad to see it sort of disappear like that. Best player in the league for sure, but shows how crucial depth is. It's very true, very, very true. Tom, in terms of South One, yeah, it's all well and good. Jack Goodchild being top of so many categories, but who's top of the table? It's not Slough, it's Streatham on that front, which is pretty crazy to think. The other thing, of course, is Spengler Cup. Spengler Cup, one of my favourite tournaments of the entire year. If you're not familiar with the Spengler Cup, it started the better part of 100 years ago after the First World War in Switzerland. It was a tournament essentially to just kind of get people kind of interacting with the German-speaking world again after World War One. It's held in Davos in Switzerland, so you make your own jokes there. But and then back in the early days of it, dominated by British teams as well. Oxford and Cambridge University, regular winners of the Spengler Cup. But it happens every year between Boxing Day and New Year's Eve in Davos in Switzerland. 6 teams, 2 groups, and basically everybody gets a metric buttload of hockey to kind of watch over the space of about a week, with the winner being decided on New Year's Day itself. Traditionally, the hosts Davos will take part, as well as the fact that they've had a deal for the last little while, which has seen a Canadian team sent over. So they represent as Team Canada, but what they will be is they'll generally be European-based Canadians with a few other players kind of sent over as well. So what we have this year is the two teams two groups that we have. One group is Davos, Frölunda from Sweden and Team Canada, and the other group is Hartze Ambri Piotta, which is another Swiss team. They are last year's winners of the Spengler Cup, their first major trophy since the 60s. Hartze Dynamo Pardubice and Kalpa, who play in the Liga in Finland. So what you get is really high quality, really, really good quality hockey, and you just get hockey every day from Boxing Day all the way through to New Year's Eve. It's brilliant, and the games are going to be streamed live in English, with English commentary on YouTube. Now, my understanding is it's not being shown on any UK network, but be warned, in the past, Premier Sports and then Viaplay kind of picked it up, and they're generally showing the semi-finals and the final. Muggins here, I use a VPN. I am very, very strictly going to be watching the Swiss commentary on that one, because one thing I get really, really confused by in my brain is watching hockey from a Germanic speaking nation in English. I have to kind of watch it in German, and my brain just doesn't seem to function properly for some reason. So my understanding is it's from what we've said, it's being streamed live by SRF, which is the German language version of the Swiss BBC. So that'll be on the SRF website. So if you've got a decent VPN and you want to get it with the original commentary, as it were, by all means check it out. It'll be really, really good. It'll be srf.ch for that one. I'd argue if Blackburn did join, would be 100% going down the road of 2 conferences of 6. Yeah, potentially. It would solve the Basingstoke question a little bit as well as to what they do. Make all the jokes about Davos you like, but I still want to visit that rink. Me too. If anybody would like to pay me to cover the Spengler Cup, please, that'd be really appreciated. I'd really enjoy that. 350 tickets left for Lightning versus Phantoms next Thursday. Just over 2,200 sold. Just under 200 seats left. Brilliant. That's what we like to see. We like to see the National Division getting games as close to being sold out as possible. That's what we like. But yeah, massive, massive fan of the Spengler Cup. I have my Hartze Clawton Flyers jersey upstairs. Mickey Dupont, one of my all-time favourite players from days gone by. He says, quickly checking a few bits and pieces. When's the final? What time's the final of the Spengler? Spengler is at 11:10 in the morning on New Year's Eve. It's a 12:10 local time face-off, so drop an hour. So 11:10 on New Year's Eve to sit back and watch some hockey feels like a pretty good idea to me. I'll be commandeering the television, and my child and my sister, whose house I'll be at, will not get to say on that one at all. But yes, in terms of the actual, because the way that the Spengler Cup works is the loser of the first game in the group plays the next night immediately, so they don't get a rest. So Boxing Day, 1:10 in the afternoon, is Ambri Piotta versus Dynamo Pardubice. And then 7:15 in the evening, Frölunda versus Team Canada, with the loser of that playing the following evening against Hartze Davos. Frölunda versus Canada is going to be mental. We do not, as far as I'm aware, have a Canadian roster yet, but the Team Canada have announced that former Washington Capitals, former Vancouver Canucks coach Bruce Boudreau will be coaching Team Canada this year. Showing Spengler Cup semi-final and finals scheduled on Viaplay on my Virgin Media box. Yep, that means you're not going to get the finals and stuff on YouTube, which is really annoying. Get your VPNs at the ready is what I would say on that front. We do not have a roster for Team Canada yet, but there's plenty of time Plenty of time for folks to get called into that one. I'm massively interested to see how Ambry Piotta do last year, after kind of being the official sort of darlings of the tournament last year. Fans were a huge value for money. And all 3 games on New Year's Eve in the National League are all matinee games. I'm all for that. Yeah, 100% makes sense. Let the guys do the job, then let them get out and celebrate. You know, it's great to kind of see the teams kind of working together and do some quite sensible scheduling. All in all, quite in favour of that myself. There we go. 16 minutes past 9. So of course we're well past the hour mark at the moment. Barbecue Bruce, yes indeed. Giants Blaze gone to overtime. Deary me, the Giants have absolutely chucked that one away, haven't they? Let's get rid of that. There's NHL stats. We'll poke off there. What we will do... Let's get up there. Where's the Blaze Live account? Because they're generally quite on top of things. Crazy stuff there, though. With Belfast 4-0 to the good, I can see there. Thank you for putting that in the chat there. 43-42 and 4-0 up. And then 4 all on the night by 53-18. What a 10 minutes that's been. That is absolutely crazy. The Belfast, like I say, really do just seem to have made it a real headache for themselves this year. They just did, there was some wobbles last year before they kind of ran the gauntlet, but this year it just does not seem to have fallen for them for some reason, and I don't really know what's caused that. Are we going to see the Challenge Cup game go to penalties? Would be the question there, but we're about to find out. Either way, questions, comments. Like I say, we'll hang around for a little bit, for another minute or two, but then let's see what happens in that one as we're chatting away. But yeah, last call, because we're nearly at 20 past 9. I'm going, when I finish this, what am I doing? I've got presents to wrap, because I've wrapped precisely at nothing. But fortunately, my wife is much better at wrapping than I am, so most of the big stuff for the boy has already been done. Will I get anything hockey related? I don't know. Probably not. But we will see what happens on that one. Worst case scenario, I'll just have to find some stuff to buy myself. Or, given the fact I haven't bought any cards since well before the end of November, I will probably have a look at and see what I can get myself going forward from there. See what I can pick up. As we keep looking, nothing at the moment. Still in OT. Pressing buttons. He says, waiting to see whether anything happened. 2 minutes have gone in overtime, apparently. Can the Blaze literally pull this one out of the fire? Becomes the discussion there. But there we go. Last call, ladies and gentlemen. Last call then for questions or comments or anything else before we kind of knock off for the evening. What I will say for this weekend is no hockey for me. I have a weekend off for the first time in quite pretty much actually this year, this entire season so far. With Christmas happening, my wife asked me no hockey from here to here, and because she and I have been together now for 16 years and I'm not an idiot, I said yes. We've got a family meal with her side of the family this coming Saturday, so no hockey for me, and then just taking the week to not do stuff, really, just be away from stuff, just keep tabs on everything, put my feet up, watch the Spengler Cup, try and relax a bit, and then back to it. My last game of 2023, I'll be in the commentary box, which kind of sort of sums up my year, I think, doesn't it, of where I've come from to where I've gone, where I will, having not commentated on a game until having done my first commentary in April at the Sky Dome for the Division 1 National Final, I finish off 2023, my final game of the year, as it stands, will be commentating on the Elite League, which is pretty crazy, I think. It's quite a progression in the last year. I've commentated on Division 1, NIHL, and Elite League in the space of from in the space of sort of 3/4 of a year. So pretty cool. And I like to think that there's more coming my way. I really enjoy commentating. It's hard work. It is quite hard work, but it's pretty good. If Belfast lose, I wouldn't want to be in that Belfast change room with Adam Keefe. If I was him, I wouldn't say a word. I'd just let him stew on that one until tomorrow. I wouldn't be talking about that one at all. Either way, let's all head out of here then and stare at Twitter and see what happens between the Blazers and Giants. We'll call it there. Bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, your number one source for everything related to the NIHL, as well as focusing on the National Division, Division 1 and Division 2, wherever we can kind of find it. Of course, you can follow my crazy hockey journey across this season in our Banners on the Road series. As I give you an in-depth look into every game I managed to come across this year. You've got 2 games from the past week over on the website: Guildford versus Fife from the Elite League Challenge Cup, and Swindon versus Sheffield on their grand return home, as well as our Hockey Stories series, long form pieces of content, both in written and video form, where you get to have a check and a chat from the 19th century all the way to the present day, behind the Iron Curtain, into war and beyond. Players, officials, the movers and shakers of British hockey, all of them have chosen to step in front of the mic with Banners on the Wall. You've got the back catalogue of the old BOTW podcast that's there, as well as Dice Hockey, our free to download ice hockey game that you can play at home with bits and pieces around your house. All I ask is that if you do download Dice Hockey, which remember, it's free to download, but if you do download it and you do enjoy it, all I ask is you put a couple of quid towards Parkinson's UK. My dad is a sufferer of Parkinson's. He's now got Parkinson's dementia on it as well. You see, he says that game's going to a shootout. But yeah, Parkinson's is rubbish, and if we can get money towards research and a cure, that'd be amazing. But there's tons of stuff over 12 and a half years, well, actually 12 and nearly 3/4 years worth of stuff at bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, facebook.com/bannersonthewall. If you like getting your news through your Facebook feed, all the link, everything goes on the website. All the big videos go out onto the Facebook page as well, so make sure you go and like that page too. Twitter is at BannersOTW, my kind of rolling commentary about all things related to ice hockey across the thing. All of the links are down there in the description of the YouTube video, along with our virtual busking hat over at buymeacoffee.com/BOTW. BOTW is never going to go behind a paywall. That's just not kind of the style of doing things. But if you'd like to keep the lights on and running in bits and pieces, and just kind of help contribute to kind of what I do, it'd be massively appreciated. You can go do that, like I say, and donate. Buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/BOTW. Link is in the description. And of course, we're on YouTube. Tons and tons of stuff here on the Banners on the Wall YouTube channel. Not just the home of the NIHL's first, only and best live show, the What's Current stream, Wednesday nights at 8 PM, but also tons of interviews. My interview, you can check back the old What's Current streams, but you can see my interview from last Friday with England Ice Hockey Board member Daniel Smith. You can see my interview with owner of the Stew in the Wildcats and Leeds Knights Steve Nell. You can see my interviews that I did with tons of the owners during the summer, from Matty Davis to Aaron Nell to Graham Bauer, the director of the Bees. Tons and tons of great stuff there to check out on the YouTube channel. So like the video, share, subscribe, feed the algorithm hamster so it gets big and fat, especially over Christmas. And let's keep building this lovely little community we have, tuning into all things British ice hockey here from Banners on the Wall. Well, there we go then. Another week done as the shootout rumbles on in Belfast. It's time for us to rumble very, very firmly off. Be happy. And if you can't be happy, then please do be safe, especially this time of year where it can get pretty hard. I know it can do. So do your best, please, to please be safe. As my friend Scotty Wilson would say, take care of yourself and somebody else. For bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, this is Anthony Russell saying stay safe. So long until next time. And Merry Christmas, everybody. We'll do a proper year round up next week, Wednesday at 8 PM, on the final What's Current stream of